Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to the exciting second half of the session. So we'll now get ready to get started with the second half. Request you all to please take your seats. All right. So to begin the second session of the day, I'd like to call upon stage Mr. Ramu to provide to us with a glimpse of the Indian print and packaging industry. Mr. Ramu.
So good afternoon, and hopefully I'll keep you awake, and just give me half a second. Yeah, so good afternoon. What I'm going to try to do is something quite straightforward. We have the luminaries of the Indian print industry. So the scenario is as such that you have to imagine me as Harsha Bhogle, and we have Virat Kohli, Dhoni, Ashwin, and all of the other greats. So my job, what I'm going to try to do over the next few minutes is essentially describe the amount of work and the expertise that these people have put in, the organizations that they've built, and the kind of print jobs that they have done. So that is basically what I'm going to do. So it's going to be like a running commentary. Obviously, there's lots that's happening in the print industry, especially in India. So to simplify the job, what I've really done is I've made it into a category of A to Z. So it's not sort of defined by technologies or segments or areas. So I'll run from A to Z, and each alphabet will denote one trend that I think is important. I've designed this specifically for a lot of you who are seated at the back, because I realized the last time with my brief interaction with many members of the team that many of you really do not get an opportunity to go out in the field and visit the plants, visit the factories, meet the CEOs of various organizations. So the idea is also just to give you a flavor of who the sort of the Khans of the industry are, who are the icons of the industry, and what have they contributed to us. So here goes. So that's me. So I'll start off with A for awards, and this is a bit of an in-house plug, but the reason so we do, as Print Week India, we do something called the Print Week India Awards. And every year we started this off in 2009, and every year we get about entries from about 150 to 200 print firms. And the really interesting thing that's been happening in the last 2 or 3 years is the quality gap between the premium organizations and the ones at the bottom of the pyramid is gradually narrowing. The second thing that started happening, and that's I think truly defines what's happening in India today, is again the Indian cricket team metaphor. If you sort of go back to 30 years, 40 years, 50 years ago, if you looked at the constituent of the Indian cricket team, primarily the players were from Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore. These were primarily the cities, Calcutta. These were primarily the cities from where the Indian cricket team contributed their, the players. Today, if you look at the Indian cricket team, it's a fantastic, I think there's just one player from Mumbai, there are 2 from Bangalore, and probably 2 from Delhi. That's it. The rest of the players are coming from small towns of India. Ranchi, you're talking of someone from Saurashtra, you're talking of someone from Najafgarh. So it's a really small town. The same thing is getting translated into print. The great print success stories we are finding are from the smaller towns. So Karur, then it could be Kollam, then it could be a small place like Morbi. So these are the areas from where we are getting lots and lots of very, very exciting print. And the third thing that's happening is that print is no longer remaining, and this I think we discussed last time and we'll hopefully also discuss in the panel, is that print is no longer two-dimensional. It's no longer X and Y axis. A lot of the samples that we get moves into the area of the realm of Z axis. And again, a lot of the samples that we get in, demonstrate that. A little bit of what Himanshu showed us on his video today. So books, and this particular PPT was put together by people in my organization who are below 25. So this is how they view the world of books, as opposed to me, as I still believe in the hard printed copy book. The good news, however, is threefold. One is that I don't know how many of you visited the Delhi World Book Fair, which was on immediately after Printpack from 14th to 19th. about around 1,000 plus stalls, most of it crowded, and not with old people but very, very young people, college crowds, but all of them swarming. You had sort of footfalls of about 30 to 40,000 people picking up books. The second interesting thing that happened at the Delhi Book Fair this time was that a lot of the stall space was not only publishers but also print providers as well as printers. That was the second shift, that in the traditional Delhi Book Fair, where it's not like Frankfurt, it's not like London where deals are done, alliances and so on and agreements, but you also had printers. Manipal was there, Repro was there, S. Chand, I mean you name it, there were about 20 to 30 big printers over there pushing their titles, pushing deals, pushing agreements. The third thing was we did a round table around that time with, so this was a matchmaking plus discussion forum between publishers and printers during PrintPack, and this was a closed group of about 30 to 40 people who had assembled in that room. And from the publisher side, we had Pearson's, we had Scholastic, we had Edelweiss and so on, and almost uniformly all of them said that the consumption of books, printed books again, is going up, number one, and number two is that for the next 2 decades definitely they see an ascendancy in this number. So it's not a story that's over, it's not a chapter that's closed, and in spite of minor hiccups with what the central government has done with the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, we still find that that chapter is still, there's a long way to go. So C is for corrugation. The last time I had mentioned this, so this is Mr. Kirit Modi. He heads Pyramid Packaging, which is I think the largest player in corrugation. One of his plants, which is located outside of Bengaluru, does about 5,000 tons. There are others like Meghdut who are. The reason again I've showed you this is that again in the top 15 category we are finding that increasingly corrugation, which used to be down market in terms of the brown box and conversion of the craft market, craft paper into brown boxes, is increasingly turning automated. So we have two sides of the chapter. This one is of course very automated with within Bob's folder gluer, which does 20,000 boxes in about an hour. So you have the sheet, it gets sheeted, is 5-ply, and then the 5-ply is fed into this machine, and then out pops 20,000 boxes. So this could be a combination of primary and secondary packaging. Increasingly we are finding the number of automated plants for corrugation rising. Most of it, the workflows are very solid. We're looking at India in 2014 doing something like 4.3 trillion boxes. A lot of it we are expecting much more growth with sort of food packaging coming into play, as well as a combination of primary and secondary packaging. So this is digital. This is just a combination of presses that I've put together. It's still small steps in India. We did a very basic number crunch for 2014, and I think I'll just read this out because I don't want to get these numbers wrong. So for A3 in 2014 it was 3.8 CR for color, and number of impressions, and black and white was 15 crores per month. And according to our data last year, that is 2014, from Jan to December, we had 318 color cut sheet machines installed and 200 black and white. So this is across all your 10 to 11 digital players. This gives you some indication. So these are the last 4-year numbers. I can share this PPT later so you can dwell on these numbers. You can see the dominant players in that and how the market's been playing. So this is the light production entry level Xerox C60, C70 type. This is for the mid levels, high production, and and monolight plus mid. E for education, I think it came up during the day about, and I think it was mentioned about 4 or 5 times in terms of training. So again, I'm going to show you 2 examples because I think they epitomize 2 different things that are happening in our industry. So on the right is, you can see the gentleman, he's Mr. Saha. He is the head of the Indian Institute of Packaging in Mumbai, and he's not a technologist or he's not an IAS officer, but he's been quite driven in terms of this whole mad pursuit for trained printing and packaging education in India. At the Indian Institute of Packaging in Mumbai, they have a grant of about 70 odd crores from the central government, And in that, they're essentially attempting to do three things. One is, of course, build the laboratory. They have a very good laboratory right now for testing facilities, testing features. So if you want to do your bus strength, your crash resistance for your boxes, a lot of that IIP does it not only for the printing packaging converters, but also for the end customers. They also have a huge campus that they're building, which I think should be ready in about 12 months to 18 months. And in that, they will, of course, have, inter-country disciplines and so on, but also invite print buyers. So I think about a week ago, they did a seminar on pharma packaging. So extremely niche seminars for both end customers as well as converters is what they specialize in. And the third thing that they're trying to do is create a packaging museum, which effectively means that the best of work in that year or the year prior is showcased there. So every printer or packaging company does not need to shout. So they also, as you know, do the India Star, the Asia Star, and this year India is hosting the World Star for packaging. It's considered to be sort of the Oscars for packaging awards. Again, there is a lot of documentation process that they do in that. So this is hopefully going to take off and be realized in the next 14 months. The other photograph on the left is a small little town. It's called Dharampur. It's in South Gujarat. It's basically an Adivasi area where very, very poor Adivasi boys and girls work there. So Dharampur, for those of you who are not aware, is about 50 to 60 kilometers away from both Silvas and Daman. As part of the ITI program run by, again, the central government, the TCPL group, that is the 20th century, who are into packaging, converting, do a lot of liquor cartons, cigarette cartons, they have entered into an ITI in Dharampur. So this essentially is a kind of a short-term training program for these young boys and girls who are then absorbed by the plants that are located in Daman, Silvas and Vapi. The really interesting thing is, we all tend to esoterize about education. We talk about it from public platforms, how it is important and how as an industry we should do more. The reason I've illustrated this example, and there are others who do this, is that the managing director of this organization, TCPL, that is Sakit Kanoria, he personally makes it a point to go to this particular place. It's a really ramshackle shed, and where he sits with the boys and girls and teaches them very simple things like how to fold paper. How do you feed paper into a machine? He talks to them in Gujarati. They don't know that, he's this CEO of this 300, 350, 400 crore company. But the fact is that he invests his time in what he thinks is valuable, and it goes a long way, in, of course, enthusing these young boys and girls, and of course, ensuring that they stay in the industry. F is for Fahim Akbotwala, so this was supposed to be a tribute to him, but unfortunately he's not around. The idea is, again, that there's a new crop of young people who are coming in our industry. It's no longer defined by the third generation, sixth generation, seventh generation. It's all first generation, second generation. The second big shift that we are finding is that what I call the millennial kids. These are kids who are typically born in the cusp of the millennia. Their expectations are much more. They're greedier, they're faster, they're hungrier. They want to move fast. They're also well connected. The other thing is that they're not thwarted by this whole, the problem of sharing information and sharing knowledge. One of the things that Fahim does, and again some of you might be aware, and these are little things that we are picking up across India, is that a lot of young printers, so this is a group of about 20 young printers, below 40, most of them, they meet once a month and they share. So this could be simple things like sharing their balance sheets, it could be simple things like sharing best practices. They visit each other's plant, have notations on what they think is good, bad, indifferent with each other. They're also able to benchmark things like paper grades, ink quality, if there's a better quality of ink that's come from Toyo, if they can do something with that, etc. So this is, again, this kind of, most of them are there on Google groups, they're there on WhatsApp groups. Again, a lot of quick and fast sharing of information. What used to take months in terms of sharing would now happen in micro minutes, and that, I think, is the new sort of sense. And the interesting thing is, these are not sort of the 100 crore plus companies. A lot of these guys are in the 5 crore, 10 crore brackets, but they're moving fast. G is for, again, two companies. I picked them up because I think, there are examples one could have taken from around the country, but both these organizations are present here in Bangalore. GKWare, I think most of you are aware of. Again, you can see extremely young. The other person is Glow. They have, if I'm not mistaken, the largest installed base of HP Indigos in 4 of their plants. So they have their main mother plant in Coimbatore, then they have something in Madurai, then they have set up something in Nagercoil, and now they have something in in Bangalore as well. Both these organizations are into what we call the traditional photo album space, photo album, wedding albums, and so on. It's again the unofficial numbers are it's about 3,500, 4,000 crore market. In the case of Glow, they've shifted that market into Indigo. It's according to the HP Indigo team, and Sanjay, I might be wrong on this, is that Glow was largely instrumental in developing the photo album for HP Indigo, and which is one of the reasons why Kerala developed in such a big way. Both of them come from the traditional silver halide background, deep pockets, and the fact that they're reaching out to an audience which they claim is about 45,000 lakh crores, which is the wedding market. So they're targeting a small section of that big market in terms of providing premium product. They're not really targeting on producing print jobs, but they have a bigger target of looking at the wedding album market, a wedding market per se. GK Whale does not do it on an HP Indigo. They have a Dream Labo. I think they're going to have 2 of them, 6 of these. So it's traditional inkjet. The quality is comparable to silver halide. So again, this is sort of the other sort of micro space which we find which is quite interesting. This is a plant which is personally one of my favorites, and the reason I've included, so this is the Hindu in Coimbatore, which is not as well known as say the Hindu plant in Chennai or Hyderabad, which is absolutely fantastic and great to visit in terms of just the scale and stature of the work they do. The reason I've included the Hindu is, this sort of monster in India which we call green. So we keep hearing, various versions of what green represents, what green stands for. Some people say that it is sort of tantamount to having a particular kind of certification. Some people say it's tantamount to, sourcing FSC paper and so on. As you know, a lot of gap in India between high theory and actual facts. So sometimes you have FSC paper certification, the paper is not there in your stocks. You have accreditation, but the accreditation is done by auditors who are not familiar with the principles of printing. So therefore, there are problems. So the Hindu, in my view, and this again I can share with anybody, because this was an audit that we did with them along with Mr. Balaji, who's the one of the sort of founding members of the newspaper plant, is basically looked at the small incremental steps that the newspaper organization did in terms of doing green. So if you look at this particular plant itself, of course there's automation and so on, but it's completely daylight operation, so it means that there is no usage of electricity during the day. The temperatures are kept ambient. Then simple things like safety water walls, so which prevents leakage of water. Then you have air humidity units. Then you have decontroller for humidifiers. So lots and lots of really tiny investments that they have done in this plant. And again, we have a lot of data on this, which you can see the difference pre, post, and how it is an ongoing process. There's a fantastic thing that K. Balaji says, and I think it's important sometimes when we are in printing, we tend to always look at the big picture, the big investments, the big plants. But he quotes, I think it's Voltaire, the French philosopher. He says it's the small things that make a plant. And it's really the small things that the Hindu does at Coimbatore which really makes this thing such an enhanced unit. This report is with me, so it's a 40-page document which we've done, and extremely readable in the way they have sort of executed their plan. This is India. Again, we've done a survey. I can share the data with you, but I think essentially the news from the pulpit, as it were, is that 2015 looks like a really good year so far. 3 big shows, as I told you. One was PrintPack 2015, which transpired in Greater Noida. There were about 400 exhibitors, primarily on printing, anything related to print on paper and paperboard. And according to our numbers, and again this is a very rough count, we realized that there's about 250 to 260 crores of business orders that were booked during those 5 days. So again, there's a wide spectrum of things that were booked. It meant that I think Kamori, if I'm not mistaken, had an booking order of about 20 of their machines. Ryobi had a double-digit number. On the other side, the digital, each of them, whether it is Xerox, Canon, HP, Konica Minolta, all of them did, I think, anything between 4.5 to about 7 crores of business in terms of orders booked. And the other big story was, of course, a lot of made in India products in the finishing and fulfillment. So someone like APL came up with a very good solution for LED. Redlands is now setting up a manufacturing plant in Coimbatore for box making for very small 250 boxes, 200 boxes kind of run. So that's where again we found Wellbound, of course, Megabound. So a lot of little post-finishing equipment, which was again, did fantastically well. The other big show which happened was, I think about 10 days prior to Printpack, which was Plast India in Gandhinagar. Again, 1,000 odd exhibitors. The number of booked orders is much higher simply because our packaging gravure plant is obviously much bigger in scale and size. Again, the Make in India project over there took off because you had organizations like Pelican who create absolutely beautiful gravure machines, entry-level, expert. So again, that space, so this was everything and anything to do with plastics, extrusion and BOPP. So two really, really big shows, and of course there was World Book Fair. So this is the other side, the darker side of the Indian print industry, and I have included this for two reasons. One is it sort of gives a break to you guys from hearing me go on and on. And the second thing is I can have a gulp of water. Can you read this at the back? Yeah. So these are some of the concerns both from the printers as well as from the print buyers. Now this was again a small survey which we had conducted in which we mapped what the print buyers' expectations from the industry is. So these are concerns, and so far the examples I've been giving you is the top 10% in the industry, the top of the pyramid. K is for Kollam and Kerala. Again, I was telling you this fantastic story of small town India. So Kollam is really a tiny town. It's probably half the size of Whitefield in that sense. It's located between Kochi and Trivandrum. And the reason it came on our radar was it's a town very pretty like most towns in Kerala, which has got 4 massive Heidelberg factories there. Completely state of the art with finishing, with pre-press, CTP and everything. And then there are 2 bits of trivia that emerged. One was that this was again 3 years or 4 years ago when Heidelberg targets were being sort of drawn up. They realized that Kerala had actually succeeded in fulfilling the targets almost 3 years prior to the targets that were sent by head office. The other interesting bit of trivia is that Kerala is the place with the highest installed base of HP Indigos. There are about 25 or 26 of these machines. The total number, the reason I'm referring to both Heidelberg and HP is just to give you a sense of the premium status of what where print occupies in this state. It's just beginning days, so there are about 150 to 160 HP Indigos brand new in India all over, and you have 25 of those in Kerala. So again, 3 things are happening. I mean, as you know, Kerala is sort of God's own country, tourism, 5 stars, etc. So the perception among the print community there is that if everything else is migrating to the 5-star sort of attitude and demeanor, print also gradually needs to move up the value chain, and that is one of the big shifts that you are seeing. The second is, prior to this, a lot of work used to go to Shivakasi, Bangalore, Hyderabad. A lot of that work is now being produced within Kerala itself, and this is the thing that you'll find in other smaller towns as well. The work now is sort of domestic. It's either within the state, so if it's Chhattisgarh, then the work is being produced in Raipur, if it's Madhya Pradesh, in Indore, and so on. And the third is, of course, a lot of the money is remittance. It comes in from outside, so investments are possible, and the segments in Kerala which really do well are things very, very unusual, like jewelry. Jewelry is a huge market over there, like I mentioned, the wedding market there. So a lot of commercial printing work goes towards this market. Labels is there. So this is narrow web labels, and again I would, there's lots and lots that I could share. I can see Madhulika telling me that the time's up. But what I would say is that in Jaipur in July there is the LMAI conference that's happening. There will be about 600 to 700 label converters will be attending that. India is still at the sort of first or second step of narrow web labels. Again, a lot that is expected to happen. A lot of the big players are here. This year alone, I think we are expecting something like 40 to 60 new machines that are coming in addition to about 4 to 5 greenfield projects. At the LMI, which is normally a 2 to 3 day conference, you get a sense of what is happening in the Indian label markets. Plus later in the year, you have the Label Expo at Brussels. So I think from that context, both internationally and nationally, you'll get a sense of this segment. This is Morbi. Asha ji had already sort of highlighted. So this is what it looks like. For us, we picked this up on our radar the first time because we found that the consumption of offset plates was even larger than what Ahmedabad was consuming at that time. This is because a lot of the second-hand large format of offset presses were being are there in Morbi. They were being used primarily for litho-laminated boxes for transporting of these ceramics. I'm again going to skip this because a lot of this was covered by Ashaji in her PPT. But again, you can see the shift from the traditional offset into digital and how a lot of it is getting customized, especially for the export and premium market. Non-woven and newspapers, in spite of all the doomsday stories, again we looked at the IRS numbers from Indian Newspaper Society this year. The numbers haven't gone up. Most of the regional papers have done well. If you look at the balance sheets of Bhaskars and the HTs of the world, you will find that quarter on quarter they're actually doing better. The other big story is again non-woven, and there's actually a small case study about the company at the bottom. So that's a small manufacturing organization in Faridabad called Sahil Graphics. They used to once upon a time manufacture small mini offset machines, and Faridabad in those days was doing there were about 55 to 60 of these companies that were operating out of Faridabad. And in those days the cost of the machine was 6.5 lakhs. Today I think the cost of the machine is still 6.5 lakh, which is one of the reasons why today in terms of the mini offset single color, you find that there are only 5 or 6 of these manufacturers that are there in Faridabad. So this again goes against this entire sort of theory and mythology that we are building around Make in India. The harsh reality in terms of a lot of the import duty, service taxes, etc., hitting these guys very, very hard. So what they have done, Sahil, is that they've moved into this area where they import Chinese machines and they rebrand it as non-woven. This is primarily because of government regulations where you can do your printing on plastic. So that a lot of their machine is in that segment, low end, very low quality, but you will find 40 machines in a small town in Kupwara. You will find 30 of these machines in a small town near Jalpaiguri. So these are the kind of market segments that they are occupying. The other really interesting thing about Sahil is that if you go on Google and you type the name Sahil, Indian manufacturer, the first 10 names on Google search will be Sahil Graphics. So this is the kind of thing, both the guys are illiterate, but they've sort of worked out algorithms in such a way that you can always get only Sahil on the search engine. Non-woven is also another segment which we're expecting to pick up in the high premium segment, especially for things like diapers and so on. HB Fuller and some of these big guys are working on that. So that's happening at the top end. Again, we find a lot of integration in that with print. OH, I think Prasad's here, DJ is here, so we'll again skip that. But again, you find that greenfield projects, whether it's airports, malls, etc. Earlier, printing used to be an afterthought. Today, what we find is that urban architects, design planners actually integrate the print plan into the project itself. So you actually have the aesthetic component and the formal structures woven into this. Packaging, everybody's been talking of packaging. I just thought I'll focus on 2 guys who are sort of the stalwarts of the folding carton segment. The gentleman on the top is Ramesh Kejriwal of Parksons, multi-locational. So they have a plant in Daman, they have a plant in Chakan, Rudrapur, and a head office in Mumbai. The other gentleman, the photograph below him is the Rudrapur plant. The other gentleman on the right is Saket Kanuria, about whom I mentioned TCPL. So they have plants again in Silvas, 2 plants there. Then they have a plant in Hardwar and now a recent one in Guwahati. I think both organizations average something like 5,500 tons. And that's the sort of scalability that we are looking at. So one is multi-locational, one is scalability is very, very high, and both these organizations are looking at sort of marking up to about 500 to 1,000 crores between the next sort of 24 months. So you can see that the scaling up is happening very fast. If they probably took 10 years or 12 years to reach 100 crores, 300 crores, the scalability is moving much, much faster. Systems in place, both the organizations are SAP. Both of them have, automated workflows. There's completely end-to-end finishing, turnaround times. They work with the customers. QR and augmented reality. This is again, so there are 2 examples. I was hoping that, Narendra ji would be here. So one is from one of the works that they had produced, which was primarily a book. And for those of you who've seen the movie Avatar, this is fairly close to that in the sense of visual rendering of images inside a book. Absolutely beautifully rendered, and you have obviously a team at the back end which is working on this. And then there are organizations like Silver Point, which is a Mumbai-based company, where again they have integrated augmented reality into brochures, into travel logs and so on. So for example, if you want to buy Godrej furniture, you can actually go with a photograph of your house and look how those hardware and hardware pieces look in your house. So locks, cupboards, flooring, etc. That is again something that Silverpoint does for the print buyer. This is Repro India. Again, Rishi is not here, but I think the interesting thing is, again, the new face of book printing in India. So again, we have about 15 of these companies that we have sort of identified, which are able to do that scale of work. And of course, domestic market as well as international markets. And the other beauty is, somebody was asking me at lunch about POD and so on. But these are organizations that can do 1 copy, 10 copy, 100 copies, 1,000 copies, 10 lakh copies, and even 10 million copies. So that is the beauty and the range of spectrum. And then, of course, backed by very, very strong workflows, it also ensures that a lot of the published content, which was earlier in the domain of the publisher, is now being actually managed by the printer for them. Lots of exciting things happening on this space, both in terms of technology and also in terms of fulfillment. This is Shivakasi. I included this because I think it's an important chapter in our Indian print industry. It's a difficult place to travel to because of the weather. So basically you get down at Madurai, and then now it's fairly easy because Madurai has an international airport, and then it's about 3 hours from there. So I keep joking to people that other people go to Mecca and Kashi. I always go for my pilgrimage to Shivakasi. There are 2 or 3 things that one. So the gentleman on the left, I think, is important purely if you're mapping Indian print industry history. He heads an organization called, he's Dhanasekaran, and the organization that he heads is called Sapphire. And they are probably the largest producers of film posters. So a lot of your Kannada film posters are actually produced by him. A lot of your Bollywood, Hollywood, any of your regional Tamil language, Bhojpuri, Marathi films, all of that is produced there. It's a unique model where you have high-end printing at the one end, and at the other end they actually do work with regrain plates and what they call 3-color printing. So it is only C, M, Y, no K. So this is 200 posters, 250 posters at a time when short run was not discovered. So this was 15-20 years ago. The B grade, C grade films which are being distributed in Mofussil town and need some basic kind of pilgrimage. The person in the center is from an organization called Lovely. Again, today they are the largest book plant in Shivakasi, and then you have SFA, Srinivas Fine Arts and Gobsons. Again, doing a lot of book printing work for governments in the SAARC area as well as North Africa. The other interesting thing is that, as you know, in Tamil Nadu, for 2 years there was a serious power crisis. So a couple of these organizations actually went, sort of did element of backward integration and opted for the solar panels. So Lovely, for instance, did that huge cost of investment. Of course, there's supposed to be a subsidy that the state government provides for you. Not feasible, but still that's something that they've invested in. And at the bottom is the sort of Shivakasi Master Printers Association, which is their hall, which is something akin to this. But the interesting thing is that in Shivakasi itself there are 2 printing schools, and both of them fairly supported by the local industry. Then we have textile and tin printing. I think Mr. Udappa spoke a bit about textiles, so I'll again skip those bits. The only thing is that we are finding some interesting trends with dye sublimation. I was in Ludhiana recently, and these are the guys who do the IPL t-shirts. And the reason why it works very well is because the sponsorship for IPL comes in at the last moment. So they typically do the kind of branding, and it's possible to do that, high gloss, very good value garments on dye sublimation. Tin printing is we're seeing a big comeback. There was a fairly big conference in Mumbai on Friday or Saturday, Canovation, and we got a sort of insight into 2 fairly big organizations. One is Hindustan Tin Works and Rexim, and the other is Zenith Works. So again, the combined strength of these organizations is doing something like 1.3 to 1.5 billion metal cans. These are 2-piece cans. These are typically the cans from which you have your beer or your deos. Again, because in everything in India starts off in a very sort of at the bottom of the pyramid, enormous possibilities of growth. Again, the opportunity we got when we visited even Canpack was, fantastic plants, completely automated, and a huge sort of segment in terms of where the growth is going to come from. UV and used machinery. UV, I think, is in, and we're seeing lots and lots, and especially at Printpack and at Plast India, we saw lots of significant movement with LED. We also saw some amount of trends with HUV. I think these are both technologies that one has to look out for. Again, there are Indian players who are trying to do this at lower cost because the cost of UVing is still higher than heat sets. The other thing is used machineries. I mean, sometimes we talk of business models and so on, but today the ratio is still, all the examples that I've listed, the ratio is still about 9:1. So it's 90% of the machines that come into India are second-hand machines. So last year, I think the count was some 3,000 odd offset units that came in, out of which only 267 were brand new units. The rest of them were all second-hand. The reasons are obvious. One-time the cost, the technology is still not obsolete, and the last sort of you can pick up a really good heat set or a really good state-of-the-art 6-color coater, which is just 3 years, 4 years old for one-time the cost. And now you have service support from most of the German and Japanese manufacturers. So this again, we had Manish last time. We have Bajaj, so I won't dwell on this, but this is again the new space in Indian printing, and I think we should be watchful of this. This is the new business paradigm. Have a really good web to print platform, and your business model is not as 5,000 tons, 20,000 tons, one container of books, but your business model is that my end customer is he or she whose printing purchase is not more than 5,000 rupees a year, and how do you engage with that customer, and how do you make sure that print reaches that person? So again, Vistaprint's a good example. It's a French-based organization, 1.3 billion turnover. They started off in India, I think 3 years ago, and have been growing in size in terms of what they do. It's a good idea to go to the website and just see how the web platform is. They use it really well. There are other players as well in the market. Zoomin is there, Print Venue, many others. The really interesting thing is that we're finding a lot of angel investors and funds for startups for this kind of an organization, where they're actually doing is building a brand for print and then hoping to sort of exit with at 50 crores, 100 crores. So that is the sort of thing you sort of list yourself on the market, build yourself a brand and move on. So but print being used as a brand, and that is again something we find that a bunch of these guys from IIT and IIM are doing that. Workflow, again I had something related to Rishi and Repro, but I'll sort of skip that. It's like teaching workflow to the guys who make workflow. X is again certain the sort of, I've been presenting a rosy side of print. So these are some of the reasons why plants, you'll be hearing, there are about 8 to 10 plants that shut down in Mumbai, quite a few printing plants shutting down in Chennai. So you keep hearing that. So these are some of the reasons. Again, this was part of a survey that we conducted. Bad debts, fragmentation, non-government recognition, these are the things that the print industry does, and does it quite well. 24/7 service. You pick up the phone and call a printer at 3 in the morning on a Sunday and he'll answer. So yeah, and again in terms of say MIS or in-house plant audit, in-house green programs, that is the percentage of companies that are actually implementing or executing these plans. So still a long way to go in terms of best practices or standards. Just 2 more slides, and this has got jammed. This I think we kind of covered. This is the sort of new breed of young people who are in the industry. So as I said, most of them are millennial kids. Most of them are not from the print industry. Their fathers have been sort of intelligent enough to ensure that they go and study their specialty in other industries. So somebody would be working, in Norway with the forest department. Somebody would be working in the shipping industry. Somebody would be doing back and beyond, work in the port in Singapore, and then returning back home and, using some of these ideas and plans in the printing operation. So this is again just a rough sample of some of the guys. The guy on the top right is again very interesting. It's a small plant in Pune called Prabhat Printing Works, and the really interesting thing is I think for the last 20 years every single machine that they've been installed in has been inaugurated by Anna Hazare. So this is Z-axis, which I was telling you about. So this is what we are saying is the new paradigm, in the sense that no longer do printers confine themselves to the X and Y. They go to the Z-axis. The lady on the right, she's seated on a corrugated chair. It's produced by somebody called Jaina. He specializes in furniture. The other thing that Jaina specializes in something called cradle to coffin. So cradles made of corrugation, coffins made of corrugation. In Mumbai, there's a sort of new statutory law that coffins cannot be made of teak. So corrugation therefore works as a sort of really good alternative. It's eco-friendly, it's biodegradable, and within Mumbai has a huge space crisis. So within 2 or 3 years, these coffins have to be scooped out. So in that sense, these corrugation. So it's something that I think he's trying to patent. He also does a lot of children's furniture, children's toys using corrugation. This is again, some examples of the kind of work that's going on. The interesting thing was this was shared to me by a print technologist from Chemnitz, and at that time, this was about 6 years or 7 years ago. And when he shared these visuals with me, I said, this is science fiction. This is not going to happen, and this will definitely not happen in India. The really good news, and the reason I picked this up is that all the examples that I'll show you next, the next 4 slides, all of them are actually work that's being done in India by, people using wide format UV flatbeds. This is again something, there are 3 or 4 companies that are doing this now on a regular basis. This is again with embedded textured, chips, so you can get them. Recyclable papers. Again at Printpack we came across 2 stalls which provide this. You also have papers that are sort of edible. That's the one. So you can go to a very premium restaurant and taste what you're having. Again, a lot of this is happening with the mainland Chinas of the world, where you can have this kind of exquisite, if you have a VIP gathering or something. Audible textiles, haptic packaging, skin. Yeah, that's it. That was like a really quick breeze through India from A to Z. Yeah, I'm done. So I think I've overshot like incredibly.
So indeed, Ramu, it was a wonderful presentation for A to Z. So I was thinking, okay, should I do my duty or should I go by my personal interest? So I think the personal interest was better listening till the Z. So it was very good. So give a huge round of applause to him. So I know it's after lunch time. So and we have learned ABCD. So may I ask some questions? What does C mentioned here was? Sorry, loud, please. Asha is saying corrugation. Wow, she wasn't sleeping. And what was E? E was education. I thought E was EFI. Nevertheless. Okay, very cool. So going on to the next in our agenda, what do we have? So how many of you have seen Oprah Winfrey show? How many of you have, very cool. How many of you have heard of Oprah Winfrey show? Oh, very cool. So what is this show all about? Sam, why don't you tell us? Okay, so yeah, Ramu is.
It's mostly female-dominated audience, and they invite interesting guests. Sometimes it's people like Tom Cruise who jump up and down on the sofa and profess how much in love they are and getting married and whatnot. And it's a very emotional show. I don't think, Ramu, you're going to be doing that.
You're not at all.
Okay. All right. So that's going to wake everybody up.
Yeah, that was to wake everyone up so that you are all up and running for the next one. So this is going to be an inspirational one with Ramu leading it. So we have a one-to-one session kind of a thing. So we call it a discussion with the print and packaging titan. So here the titan is none other than Mr. Gautam Pai. So give a huge round of applause to him. So let me briefly read out what I read out in the morning. So Mr. Gautam Pai, Managing Director, Manipal Media Group, Manipal Technologies. So it's a great honor to have him on our council as he is recipient of Mumbai Mudrak Sangh Lifetime Achievement Award in 2015 for his contribution to print industry and driving the print business of Manipal Group to a ₹1,000 crore business since joining the group in 2005. So welcome, sir. We would like to call you upon the stage for the discussion with Ramu. Thank you.
So good afternoon, Gautam. First and foremost, congratulations, heartiest congratulations for the Lifetime Achievement Award. And I know because I was part of the scrutiny project, and I think there were 8 or 10 CEOs that were shortlisted, and then actually without much of a fight, you won. So, so really big congratulations. And coming from one of the more progressive, print associations, and you gave a very eloquent speech. So on that particular evening, Gautam gave a fairly eloquent speech about outlining his vision and so on. My question to you is, what next? I mean, having won the Lifetime Achievement Award and, half your life still left, what next for Gautam Pai?
Good afternoon. Thanks, Rama, for the good wishes. Actually, when I heard about the award, I was very surprised because exactly like Ramu said, Lifetime Achievement Award sounded like, I was end of my career or something. And I really believe I'm just starting. So I don't think, I think the award was not really for me. I think it was more a recognition of what the organization and the leadership team and all the people in the organization have achieved the past 10 years. So I think there's a lot to be done, and I think it's very interesting where we are in the industry with print, with our economy in India. So it makes it very exciting and challenging. And I think we are in one of the most exciting markets. So I'm really excited. So.
Sure. One really interesting piece of statistic which I think you indicated was that when you joined Manipal, and correct me with the dates and such, that you had one 4-color machine, or you just introduced that. And since then, obviously, 11 locations, innumerable amount of investment, people strength, plus, I mean, the way forward that, as the numbers that were quoted, that from below 3 digits, you've almost gone up to 4 digit in terms of your turnover. What was it that was sort of driving you in these 10 years? I mean, what was the process like? Obviously, it's, a lot of planning, a lot of, identifying areas in which you were sort of investing.
I actually, I did my engineering in printing in Manipal. And so the print business in the family called Manipal Power Press was started by my father. So I had exposure to print, very early days. Even as a kid, I used to go to a plant sometimes and things like that. But after I finished my education, I didn't join the print business. I started a technology business, which was in a completely unrelated space. It was in the electronic design automation space. And then I also started working in the family's media business, newspapers, magazines, and things like that. It's in about 2002, which I started spending time in the print business part-time, and took over the entire running the business in about 2004. When I initially started spending time in the print business, for some priority reasons, the family had not received attention for a long time. So once upon a time, Manipal Power Press was among the top 2 or 3 in the country, and because of lack of focus and lack of investment for many years, it had really lost its place in the industry. And like I said, that time there was not even a single 4-color machine, and
Correct.
that time for commercial printers, the number of 4-color machines you had was kind of a benchmark. Today, that's not really relevant. So I thought to myself that, the company had a great committed set of people. It had a very good reputation in the industry. Customers, vendors, everyone loved the organization. And it had a good customer base. So I said, we need to bring this organization back to where it belonged in the industry and also make it a market leader. So that was what really kind of drove me from the print business perspective. But starting spending time in print, I felt that, pure print was going to be challenging in the long term in terms of the kind of margin that it generates. I felt if you go niche, you have margins, but scalability is a challenge, right? So we needed to have scale to build a large organization to enable us to do many things. So I felt that we need to look beyond print, and that's when we started building scale. In any business that we got into, we thought, how do we really get in scale? And if we could not find scale, we avoided getting into that business. If we experimented in few niche markets, it was profitable but not scalable. So we started building scale, but we started looking at services. We started looking at what industry we are serving. Is there a way to offer service or solution to this industry in holistic manner if there's no strong such player already? And started moving the organization towards a solutions organization. And I think the past 10 years, I think we have moved to maybe 30% of our revenue comes from solution and services. And the goal is to have 50-50 in the near future. So it becomes less capital intensive, becomes more value added, that gives us the ability to invest in long-term projects in R&D, to experiment, have more failures, right? So I think that's been how it is. And I think it is in the past 10 years, whatever little we have achieved, it's because the focus has been really, I would say, creating an environment for really people with capability, with high aspiration to really excel, right? If I was running the business myself, it would have been a failure. I just created an environment for people, leaders in the respective field. We have really a good management team. Some even in terms of where we have acquired, we have had relationships where we have invested in people's companies. So I think it's about just creating an environment, focusing on the culture of the organization and, basically working together.
Sure. But did it ever cross your mind when you were at Manipal doing your, printing technology course, that this is how it's all going to unfold, and is this, so many units, so many verticals, so many people who are working as part of the Manipal technology group, and of course this sort of forward vision. Was this something that you had planned out? I mean, how does this work? I mean, is it sort of quarter on quarter, or do organizations plan 5 years, 10 years? I mean, if you can, if there's some young entrepreneur here who wants an insight into how the mind works.
No, when I was studying, absolutely not. I had no such, there was no grand vision or no dream or something like that. But I would say that you always need to have a vision, or, you need to have a perspective of the future. It's not only for yourself, it's also, I think, for the whole team. So you work towards a common goal. So I think one of the turning points was, I don't have the exact year, maybe 2004 or 2005, where we sat as a team, and I kind of, took them through what the next 4 years will be looking like. For example, very graphically, showed them like, okay, there's one machine here in the slide, like one focal machine.
Sure.
I said in the next 5 years or 6 years, there'll be 100 of them, right? If there's say 1,000 tons of paper, there'll be 100,000 tons. So to mentally get people equipped to that scale of thinking,
sure,
and also to energize the whole team, right? So I think those moments are there. I don't think, you think about 10 years completely like that. Also, I think doors opens up. When you, do one thing, 5 doors open up, right? Like, for example, we got into, one small project of doing holograms as a backward integration. Yeah. We found that we were consuming a lot of holograms, and we were spending a lot of money on it. Once we got into it, 10 more opportunities opened up, right? So it was not exactly planned that way, sure, but today, for example, all of the RuPay cards, RuPay is a Visa Master equivalent in India, all those holograms are done by us for any card company, and now we're doing a lot more things. So it's a completely new line of business which came up in 2 years with a completely different intention, right? Sure. We started doing some high security inks and chemicals as backward integration. Now we're actually selling those to some countries for the currency printing, sure, right? So sometimes you don't have a complete vision, you do it, but many more doors open up, and if it's interesting, you take it up.
Sure. So if we just sort of rewind a bit and we focus on your commercial book publishing and magazine publishing, I know, you obviously have worked with some of the biggest trade publishers, and, in terms of turnaround times, fulfillments, and of course, go-to-market has been fantastic. But experience with some of the publishing, magazine publishers, people like Condé Nast, I know they have pushed Manipal, to a great extent because of their own stringent, So the question really is, how much have your, buyers to a large extent helped in, being partners in this journey, both in terms of sort of quality auditing certain processes, insisting on certain things, and as a result, you've been able to, leapfrog up the quality chain?
I think from a publishing perspective, I think there has been learning from people like Condé Nast. But I would not say too many other publishers,
Correct.
do that.
Yeah.
I think, of course, turnaround time, those things are table stake. We don't have a choice to do it anyway.
Sure.
But in terms of upgrading the quality standards, I think there are not too many. I think Condé Nast, because of its, global production standards, I think definitely helped us move a little ahead in the magazine printing. Others, I would not say too much. But of course, there are a lot of certifications, like when you go through a visa certification or those are, I think, which really forces you to, put in a lot of standards. But from customer learning, I would not say that much.
Right.
no.
But in terms of books, because I know you produce a lot of them and probably among the top 3 in the country today, but has there been something that you worked out in terms of book sizes, PUR, dispensing with section sewing, handling of sort of PDF files, these kind of things?
Yeah, I think in that space, yes. Ramo, technically, I'm not too,
Sorry.
I'm not too much expert in book production in technically, but I think there is a lot more, I think, engagement with the publishers than there was before.
Sure.
Because I think in the olden days, print typically was a vendor. Now with the size of projects getting larger and, small problems can really become a major issue for the publishers. The whole partnership model is kind of developing, just like it is in the larger economies.
Sure.
Right? Because print becomes a critical part of their, supply chain. So I think that is happening. So naturally, there's more long-term discussions on technologies, on planning, contracts are longer term. So I think that is definitely there.
Sure. You say you're not technically proficient, but there's a rumor, and since we are in a public forum, I think I can ask you this. Is it true that once a web offset didn't work at Manipal and you and Shashi Ranjan actually rolled your sleeves, went down and started the machine, or sort of dismantled it and is that a true story? Or?
And the dismantled part is not true, but yeah, we ran newspaper machines together. Honestly, I love engineering from a learning perspective, and I think whenever we start any new business, I generally like to be hands-on
Hands-on.
learning. So at that time, we had got a new newspaper web, and I was spending time in the media business. So it was really fun running the machine. It was like driving a big truck. So we ran it for a couple of nights, and of course, we had a lot of initial startup challenges. That way, when we set up a unit to make home fragrance products, we set up a factory in Mangalore to make aromatic candles. For the first 3 months, I spent time in the factory, and that was a manual process, pouring the wax myself and learning. So I think that's, learning and fun process.
Sure. But is that something that would be, befits a print CEO, that instead of being purely a financial strategist, that if he or she knows the nitty-gritties of machines, the basic technology, the inks, does that go a long way in terms of, the supervisors not being able to, throw wool over your eyes kind of a thing?
I think it depends on which stage the organization is, right?
Sure.
Personally, I spend almost zero time on the technology side.
Sure.
Because I think today, technology, efficiency, cost is basically table stake. We can't really survive without it. But real value creation is made on the revenue side of the equation.
Sure.
So finding ways how you can create the extra value, I think that's where one needs to spend time. But to your question, I think it's applicable to which stage the organization is. For example, I find a challenge sometimes in some of our production floors. We have supervisors who have not come up the technical ranks, but are just, say, graduates.
Sure.
And they are unable to control the technical operators because they are not able to guide them technically. So if the person has an opinion, you have to go by that.
Sure.
So I think it depends on, how the operation is.
Sure. One of the other hats that you have worn in, Manipal Technologies has been a huge success is what we can very crudely call the JAM, which is sort of Janadhan, Aadhaar, mobile, that space with the smart cards. So again, I think you were a front runner, a disruptor, a game changer, all those things. When did this idea sort of, gain in fruition to enter this particular space? Because it was very unlike what you were doing earlier. And how did you go about that?
I think, like I mentioned earlier, we were looking at what we can do in terms of services, solutions, value add. The thought was basically to just look at it from one higher perspective, saying, what industry are we serving, what do our customers want. Because ultimately, if we are printing something or we are producing something, the customer has some use for it, right? So unless we understand that use, there's a big danger of this going away, because he might find to get that done with some other method.
Sure.
So we looked at it, and we saw that, we have at the print business where we were printing checks, security printing, we had printing checks for banks and things like that. We saw that the money was going to move to plastic. This was maybe 5 years, 6 years back. The usage of credit and debit cards was very low in the country, but we saw it was exponential. And sometimes, we always get biased by the linear.
Sure.
We think that things will change in the same pace, right? In exponential, if you miss one step, it's 50%, whereas in linear, it's a couple of points. So we said we need to look at it, and money is going to move into plastic. We didn't look at it as a print business, though there was one component of printing on plastic. So we got into it. We found a joint venture partner who could technically help get up the operations up very quickly. We had the customer base because we were already working with the banks. It might have been different decision makers, but we had relationship, we had a reputation. And very quickly, the team was able to get us into a market leadership position. And then we looked at money is moving electronic, right? So, it's no longer in plastic, and very fast that's going to happen. So we looked at, getting the switching business, where we're basically doing switching, closed user groups programs. So irrespective of how the transaction is done or where it's done, we'll have a play in it, and we can try to find, we create value for banks in terms of fraud, analytics, and various things. So I think it was about looking at the business from one step higher rather than the product itself, right? And so I think that's how we looked at it.
Sure. And one of the successful things you've done is, one can call it inorganic growth, but also these collaborations, whether it's with Gilchrist or whether it's with Quad Graphics and others. So again, what is the state of preparedness when you enter into these big sort of technology collaborations? Do you sort of ready yourself, come to a level, and then, decide to sort of enter into a technology, or it's as equals?
I mean, technology or?
Yeah, both technology, primarily technology, not equity.
No, I think I think in all relationships, the only thing we have focused on is in terms of one, we are both bringing something to the table for each other now.
Sure.
Whether we'll continue to bring value to each other the next couple of years, because then only relationships become permanent, right?
Correct.
I think that's one philosophy which has worked throughout. Otherwise, everything is great at the beginning.
Sure.
But after 1, 2, or 3 years, you have difference of opinion because you feel one is adding value, other is not. So I think that's something which we have, always done. Other thing is we have tried to partner or, alliance or whatever, because sometimes, if you shorten your learning curve, you can create much more value.
True.
Instead of holding on to all of it yourself, we found this model to be much more beneficial. And sometimes these partnerships have been in different ways. For example, in Africa, we had one of our employees who was in Manipal. He had gone and spent a few years in Africa. We wanted to start in Africa. We set up a model where we gave him sweat equity after certain milestones. He had his heart and soul in it. He knew the country. It was a much quicker startup operation and a win-win kind of relationship.
And, if you can share with us, I mean, without sort of, company confidentiality, but is it now, because obviously we're going to see greater number of consolidations, alliances that are happening in India, what should be the approach of the, typical print CEO in the Indian print industry? Should we be looking at these as, on equal terms or as an opportunity to get out of the business? What typically should be the opportunity that, going forward for an Indian print CEO?
Could you state that again? I didn't understand the
Okay,
question.
no, I mean, in the next 3 to 4 years, especially in some segments, we are going to see some amount of consolidation. You've obviously, mastered the art to a large extent. What would your sort of advice be from your position that what is the role or the, the path that an Indian print CEO should take in terms of, looking at this as an opportunity or as a sort of...
Oh, you mean in consolidation?
In consolidation, yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely, I think consolidation is going to happen. And I think there are opportunities where people can completely cash out if there
Sure.
is, It depends on the person because a lot of people have an emotional thing to it. But if they're looking at it from a purely value creation, I think there's a lot of opportunity to cash out. Other thing is that, they could probably look at a combination, meaning if you can work with a company which can really add value to you, right? Maybe you have a unique capability, a niche capability, but if you are under someone's umbrella where they have a very large customer base, maybe you can grow 5x or 10x, maybe in 2-3 years versus it will take you 10 years, and then looking at cashing out. So I think there are many options which come about. But I think one of the challenges in the Indian print industry with consolidation is that since most of it are promoter run,
Yeah.
there's a big problem because there's no large professional organization behind it. So when you acquire part of full, if you don't have, things don't work with the promoter, you have nothing left in the organization because no one needs machines today.
Sure.
Right? Machines anyone can buy. The whole thing is in the promoter, the relationship, all that. So that's a big challenge, with the smaller companies today.
Sure. So one area, and I think this would be music to a lot of people who are sitting in the room, is data. And I know that there is a substantial amount of investment that you've done in some of your verticals. So how much of your print is actually print and how much of it is actually data enabled? Because, if you look at least two of the business models, I think a lot of it is very, very high, sort of very clean data which is driving your business. And, yeah.
I really don't have the, exact figures, but I know that last couple of months we have been shipping about 4 million unique packages a day. So when I say unique, that means it's going to individual customer.
Sure.
That means there's data behind it, right? So when you're doing books or other things, they're going in large trucks to customers or whatever. So this is different. So I think that's the kind of minimum volume of data which we'll be handling. And there's a lot of non-print, right? We send out a lot of email communications, a lot of SMS, all that kind of too. So I think it's a huge amount of data. And I would say that at least 70% of everything we print in some form has got a digital component in it, even the printed form. Yeah.
And one of the segments, if one would say, where you would, I wouldn't say lag behind, but were not as sort of rapid, was say packaging. So again, if you can touch upon, because with that you also made sure that you had your foot past the Deccan in a way. You have a unit now up north as well. So what is the rationale behind that? Because I think the organization with which you merged with is a very high-end luxury packaging kind of a segment. So again, it was a combination of two unusual assets coming together. So if you can explain the rationale behind that.
I think some things are opportunity. We were really not looking for that acquisition at that point of time, but it came to us. And what we found interesting was that we had a plan to have geographical coverage. We wanted to have south, west, north, and that fit. That passed the checklist. Second, they had very good design capability. Right, that very design capability, and it was in the team too, not just with few individuals, which we felt we needed. We were lacking that, right? Because we are always looking for validation and differentiation, and that design capability we felt would help our overall packaging business and would help our digital pre-media business. So we could offer international customers in our digital pre-media business packaging pre-media as well. Sure. So that also I think worked out well. And I think we found the family very entrepreneurial, and they agreed to stay on. So I think that also worked out pretty well. And there was a good export market which we could leverage for other businesses.
Sure. So does this mean now in the packaging space also you're about 2,500 tons? Or would it be more with all the combined facility and...
So I don't know. The
all right,
but
okay. I think a couple, again, I've been given a couple of questions. One is, obviously you're sitting in Manipal for a large part, and, you have these 11 units and professionals running. How difficult or how easy is it, to monitor? Because each of these are supposed to be, world quality standards, very, very sort of 0.003% of errors and, all those kind of things. How easy is it to handle the top professionals? We heard about the difficulty in retaining top team, top staff, how easy is it for you to sort of monitor this entire operation?
I think it's been pretty easy. Yeah, I think the way the organization is structured is that each business has kind of a CEO reporting into a CEO.
Sure.
And so I think it's there is breadth, but there's a lot of depth because you have someone owning each one of those businesses. And I think we have fairly good review mechanisms. But since the business is broken up, they're pretty agile also.
Sure.
Right? Because we need to be, when we have different competencies in each field, we need to be as flexible and fast as them. So in terms of working style, I think I and the CEO meet once a week.
Okay.
We meet once a week to just sync up, and then we have a monthly review.
Sure.
I think rest is all goes to each of those levels.
Sure.
So I think, I don't know if there are any specific questions I can answer, but it's not complicated.
No, I mean, for instance, there was a time when you were under 40 and you were called the sort of Mark Zuckerberg of the Indian print industry because you were young and controlling this huge empire. Is it difficult for these, super qualified BTechs, MTechs, MBA graduates from IIM, etc., taking orders from someone younger to them and who they feel is probably less qualified?
No, I don't think, I think we have never felt that issue, and I think we have a lot of people from, the institute and all that, and we have actually had no attrition at senior level since 2004, not lost a single person, not a single person. I can count 3 levels. We haven't lost a single person. I think it's the kind of environment and culture you create. Because I think most of our people in the organization, at least in the leadership levels, feel it's their business. They're completely responsible for decision making, the growth, and they really benefit from what's happening.
Sure.
And I think if you have that kind of culture and people really enjoy work, right?
Yeah.
Then they'll never leave. I think most times people leave the manager.
That's true.
Right? And I think half my time, or if not half more, just goes in making sure that we have a nice organization, good place to work in, and they get all the support to create value, right?
Sure.
So I think that's not an issue.
Yeah. I think it's also to do with this whole community that one gets a sense of when one is in Manipal. And I know, with the candle business also, so they had a fire and then they just sort of rebuilt the whole thing from the phoenix in a way, and that was done. So just one last question, where do you see, not specifically Manipal Technologies, but print, say in 2050, is there sort of, if you were allowed to be science fiction or something, where do you see this whole thing unfolding and going to?
I think that's a very tough question, but I think there are going to be many areas in print which are going to be disrupted. I think, we over lunch we were talking when some gentleman mentioned his daughter didn't know what was didn't know that a black and white printer could exist, right? Last week, a couple of weeks back, I was in California looking at Google car and those things, and the professors strongly believe the next generation of people will not need a driving license. Like in the old days, you need to know how to ride horses. Today, you do it for recreation. One day, driving a car somewhere will be like a recreation, right? So in this world, when things are really changing fast, I think a lot of things which can be done digitally will be done digitally. So I think 2050 is very difficult to see. But I think at least in our Indian context, next 20 years, I see most parts of print growing, right? Our demographics, I think, support that. So I think personally that's exciting. But one also, I think, can't look at it like the old days where you buy an equipment and think you'll run it for 30 years. Right? Sorry, I don't have a straight answer to that.
That's a good answer. All right, I think we are done, and thank you very much. Thank you, Gautam. I think you have to...
Thanks a lot, Gautam. Thanks a lot, Ramu. So it was really good discussion, and we got to know how humble Gautam is. And it also sends us a message that we need to have a vision, if not long term, but at least in the short term. Yeah, and we need to create an environment for success.